There are two reasons why people get high in prison. One is for freedom, and the other is out of fear. They do drugs to achieve either freedom from stress, the inability to have power over their own lives, the guards or the inmates both emasculating you, and fear of being their true selves, fear of having to make serious changes to how they identify themselves makes them use drugs. People always think it's because they're addicts, but no, it's not that easy. Addiction is the consequence of the real reason people do dope while incarcerated. It's what they identify with. That's the real issue. In prison, the freedom and fear is rampant, and it shows itself in many different forms. The desire and avoidance of both creates the need for escape. And when you think of the word escape, most people envision a prison cell. People get high to escape the reality of being locked up. They get high to forget the reality and slip into a foggy world where nothing bad exists. Wouldn't you? Be honest. They also get high because they feel the person that they know they truly have to be happy. The personality that takes the most effort to maintain is the true persona. Drugs and booze eliminate the stress of having to be that persona. The search for freedom is more than just getting out of prison. It's about functioning inside of a prison when you know that you're not getting out. The freedom is the ability to not be affected by the 24/7 drama that happens within those walls. The true strength comes when you're able to move forward and progress while in the grips of some unfair, fucked up reality. When I was in prison, I spoke to a lot of men about freedom and being incarcerated. The same thing happens. They all say things like straight people have no idea and I wish I was out, life would be way better. These comments always struck me as funny because I knew there were people out on the street who would say shit like convicts have no idea how to live out here and I wish I was in jail getting 3 squares and an education. It always seemed to me that people on the outside wished that they were on the inside and vice versa. Nobody had any idea how the other was actually functioning within their own societies. Neither person knew of the troubles and lifestyle the other was truly living and never thought about the stressors each side had. On the outside, there's paying bills, spending time with family and loved ones, working, sickness, right? Inside, you have lockdowns, violence, ennui, boredom, apathy. People inside sit and think people outside have a better life. And the outside people think convicts have it easy. It's always been that way. Each has identified the other as, quote, better. Citing advantages that the other one has that those people don't take into consideration as a better lifestyle. Man, it's all about perspective, dude. To a convict, making money, paying bills, seeing family and friends is considered success. To the straight person, it's considered an obligation. To a straight person, eating 3 squares a day, working out, exercising, with plenty of sleep seems like a vacation. And to a convict, it's prison. Both sides identify with the personas they create to help cope with the struggle of their societies. This is why most people don't get out of their current hell and into a happier situation. Identifying with your surroundings will inevitably leave you sad. It'll leave you unmotivated and definitely unhealthy. It actually, might make you use drugs to cope. Develop compulsive habits to ease pressure on your persona. But what you don't know is that it totally kills your true nature. So then, what's the real problem? The problem is society. But fuck that, let's go even deeper. The society that you identify with is the problem. Not my society, your society. See, my society isn't the problem. It used to be until I stopped identifying with it. Everyone has their own society, right? Birds have their own society, animals, humans, fish. we saw that animals were doing this, and we started doing it a long time ago. We created our own societies and started putting humans inside of those societies. Prison is a society. School is a society. Workplaces are small societies that we all function inside. Right? We knew that animals use societies to live a happy life. So now we look to societies to fit in with, right? To identify with. Usually changes small aspects, of our nature, just to fit in. We do it because we want to be there with other people. The human desire to be accepted is our greatest life mission. It's what our psyches need to feel good about our lives. The fact that someone likes us is the ultimate reward. Most men are social beings when helpless, feeling that sense of worthlessness and despair. He seeks out companionship and shallow relationships. When men feel helpless, they join clubs and gangs to feel some sort of enlightenment in life. They need that validation of other like-minded and helpless people to help cope with their feelings. But when a man's empowered, he wants to be by himself. The confidence allows him to forge forward, led only by his ego and a desire not to need anybody for anything else. Maybe there's a pain or some sort of hurt feelings involved with success that he can't share the fruitful moments with somebody else. But when he needs people, he finds them. You need people when you need something. Not just physically, but also emotionally. When people seek out groups of friends or a gang, it's because they identify with helplessness. They project their belief in themselves as being helpless and need others to hold them up. It's a common thing. How many people, or even maybe yourself, who get depressed after one day of not seeing someone? They can't handle being alone. Most of those people are internally helpless. And the worst part is they believe it. They're always the people that end up saying, I'm just a loner, or I'm just destined to be alone, I guess. This is not who they are. The reason that they're alone in the first place, it's because it's their destiny. They're denying what will make them successful by identifying as broken. They think that what they identify with is their nature. That's their problem. Personality is not your nature. I had many issues with identification my entire life. Pretending I was something I wasn't because I didn't know who I really was. I was never taught as a child to be happy with who I was. Always told to be better, to work harder, or conform to the program. I disagreed with each of those sentiments directed to me by my parents. The lack of positive reinforcement about your true persona is worse than being told to change all the time. When you don't receive confirmation about who you are and that person and that persona is good, then you start to create masks to cover up what you truly believe is inadequate. I believed when I was a kid that I was nothing, a loser and a failure. And that went on for over 25 years. So I identified as that and I gravitated towards that. The streets, a life of crime and a lack of respect towards my family. I identified with always being a criminal. So everything that happened to me in my life went that direction. I ended up spending a third of my life in prison. You become what you identify with. We all do this. What's the first question asked basically by strangers when they meet? What's the first question? What do you do? Because that's how most identify themselves with their jobs, their miserable, unfurling, and arduous jobs. In prison, you know what they do? They ask, what are you in for? That's the qualifying question. So on the streets, it's what you do, and in jail, it's what have you done? It should be the other way around if you want to live a truthful life. In jail, it should be what are you doing to make your life happier and more fulfilling? And on the street, it should be, what have you done to make your life more fulfilling and happy? Most self-identity revolves around action, but never around interaction. It's always physical things that we do, not internal mental work. If you know me, you will know that the thing that people can ask me to make me not want to speak with them is, what do you do? I do a fucking lot of things. When I meet someone, I always ask, true story, how do you feel? It throws people off and they don't know how to answer. Usually they say good or fine, just generic lies they've been taught. No one is good or fine. We're all stressed, worried, anxious, and bored, especially right now. The list goes on, but we throw out generic, meaningless answers because we identify with mediocrity and ambivalence. Why can't we actually say how we feel to a complete stranger? Because we have self-identifying issues in our society, and it's making us into robots and disconnected fools. Because we have self-identification issues in our society, and it's making us into robotic and disconnected fools. Here's the solution. Now, this is my opinion. I did this exact exercise, and it works. I did it in prison, and I did it outside, because the mindset changes when you're in either society. In prison, I looked to survive mostly. Then I learned to thrive and carried that out into the street, where I literally went the reverse. Thrive to survive. Just to make a difference in my life. The solution is very easy. It's as easy as eliminating 2 words from your vocabulary. I am. I am. I am statements will give you a true freedom that you have never felt before. The release from a false identity. The exit from limiting your abilities and your creativity. When you say I am, what you are really saying is that this is all you are. And I'm telling you, a lot of you are going to argue, no, I'm many things. I am many things. I am an artist, a father, an athlete. No. You're not any of those things. Those things are what you do. They are not you. If we were to strip you of all the external identifications that you can list and only look inside of who you are, what would we see? That is the nature of who you are. How you feel inside and how you identify yourself to yourself is the key to true happiness and life fulfillment. I am statements. I am statements. Eliminate the bullshit and force you to find your true identification in your life. It takes away places for you to hide the necessity of being you. When you take away limiting statements, you start to live your true purpose in life. All right, so example, in prison, I am not a murderer. I'm just a thief. That will mean that you will always be a thief. Well, how about this statement? I'm never going to protective custody. It means that you're always going to be in general population and never on the street. Here's another one. I'm going to do one last crime and then I'm done. That means that you're going to get out and potentially risk the rest of your life again for the same consequence, is what you're saying. And if you're on the street and you say, well, I am a secretary, then you'll only ever just be a secretary. Oh, I'm an angry person. Then you'll always be angry. Oh, I'm just not good at computers. Then you'll never be and you'll never evolve. Look, we all wear these masks, and it's super important to take them off at the end of the night. Society insists that we aren't ourselves at any time. At least, not everyone is themselves. We need workers and rule followers and enforcers. Society needs to work, or we would all be dead. A dead poet society. Changing your mindset is as easy as what you say to yourself on a daily basis. Whether you're in prison or you're outside in a self-created prison, your only obligation to yourself is not to lie and bullshit your way. Sadhguru tells a great story about the pheasant and the bull. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but here's the short version. So the pheasant was looking up at the tree and wants to be on the top tree, but he's gotten old and he can't make it there anymore. So the bull hears him and he says, you know what? If you eat my crap, Every day, you're going to make it up there to the top. And so the pheasant didn't believe it, but then he said, okay, I'll start doing it. So he started eating the bull's crap. And eventually he made it to the top of the tree again, sitting there proudly. Well, while he was up there at the tree, a farmer saw him, said, hey, that's a really nice looking bird, and shot him dead to the ground. And so the meaning of Sadhguru's story was that bullshit will take you to the top, but it won't keep you there. Right? And you can lie to yourself. Because folks, look, when you bullshit yourself, you're basically shooting down any chance you have of living an honest and fulfilling and happy life. I mean super fulfilling and happy. Like no anxiety, no care about judgment from others. You'll make a life for yourself that you'll want to share with others and not hide in a dark closet or prison or in drag until you die. You know what I mean? In prison, you can live a fulfilling life. You can thrive greatly if your focus is internal and the only objective is peace. Seeking out silence is tough in jail, especially. But I'm going to give you 2 crazy examples. You wouldn't even consider healing spots. Right? Number 1 is the hole. It's true. When guys get sent to the hole or segregation, they're finally at peace. You would think that it isn't because it's such a shitty thing to do in prison. It's the worst of the worst. It's prison within a prison. But after the first couple days, you find a Zen-like balance that actually relaxes you. You get into a rhythm because you're alone and your society is silent. You know, when you get out of the hole, you feel like a new man. You're uninvolved with the prison BS and wearing a mask of the inmate. You're refreshed and you're ready to start all over. That little bit of time away recharges a guy and he gets out with a different head on his shoulders. You know, and a second example is on the outside. Your segregation or your hole is the forest, or the hole is the desert. You know, places that no one goes for shits and giggles, but for, you know, reflection and restoration. You need to take regular trips there, and you're going to reset your mind and feel refreshed and balanced. Today, we're going to talk with Aaron Smith. He's got an amazing podcast happening in Chicago, and he is so focused on helping other guys get to where he is in life. It's hard work. It's no joke. You have to be cool with yourself, and you have to be willing to give everything that it takes to be able to have a great life when getting out of prison. On today's Prison Rules, we'll talk with Aaron Smith, and we're going to ask him, what does it take to be successful out of prison? Man, you're a good-looking cat, man, on these trailers and shit. You're walking around there like Denzel. You're looking good, bro. That's good.
All right, appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
appreciate
man, you're
it.
grinding hard. I see
I
you
am,
online.
bro. Yeah, it's coming together, man.
Dude, let me ask you something right off the hop.
Mm-hmm.
The grind, each one, the street grind, the online hustle grind, which one's harder?
Online hustle.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why?
I would say first off, it was new to me.
Mm.
First and foremost.
Yeah.
Second, it's way more competition.
Yeah. And you can't deal with that competition in the old life like we did, right?
Yeah. So it's different with that. But the good thing about it is that you don't have to look over your shoulder and things of that nature. And so yeah, it works out.
That's good, bro. Like it takes a serious mindset to do what you have done and what I've done too. I don't give myself enough credit, but what you have done, man, it takes a lot. And what I don't think Canadian people know is that growing up on the south side of Chicago is no joke. Like
absolutely not.
You're not born with opportunity there. Anybody I've ever met from Chi-Town is that way. Call it Chi-Town. It's funny.
Yeah.
Right?
But the crazy part about it is like when you're in it, you don't realize because you're in it, you know. It takes a certain kind of mind to realize like, wow, you know, this is really a bad situation, you know what I mean? Because you just you live with it day to day. And so you only notice it when you meet people from other places. And kind of discusses you all lives, and like, wow, that's not normal, you know.
Yeah.
And I had to go to prison to kind of realize a lot of stuff. And so
So
during that stay, I was like, wow, you know, I even despite me going to school and getting a degree and things of that nature, I still was I utilized the stuff in the streets more than I did the school.
yeah.
And so that's what I fed the most. And so that's what grew.
Crazy. So how did you find that in jail? Like what was the moment when you realized, holy shit, man, I'm this ain't me. Like this isn't me.
Man, to be honest with you, man, once I got that indictment
Mm-hmm.
and it said the United States versus Aaron Smith, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it was bigger than it was the whole country in a sense, right? The federal government. I
Yeah.
knew that there wasn't a win in that,
Yeah.
you know. It wasn't gonna turn out good, bottom line.
Yeah.
And so right then and there, I kind of knew, like, man, you know what? I'm a sharp cat, you know.
Yeah.
Like I was just selling the wrong product, but yet and still, I was still ambitious, had a hustler's mentality, and so I just needed to be afforded those opportunities and be in the right rooms. And so I said, you know, once I come from up under this, I'm definitely going to do things different and use my skill sets in a proper way.
Mm.
And so that's what I was doing. So when I went to prison, from day one, I was looking for the exit, you know.
Mm.
I was knew that I wasn't coming back to prison. It wasn't going to be a, the kind of person that was in and out. That I made a lifestyle out of in and out the penitentiary. That wasn't mine. That wasn't going to be the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting an indictment really changes how you feel about yourself. Getting a big sentence, man.
Oh, absolutely, man. It it's surreal. You know, I tell
Yeah.
people often it's like it was surreal going to prison and being in that environment
Mm.
initially. Then of course you adapt to your environment as humans. That's what we do.
Mm.
But it was even more surreal being released from prison.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like what happened in between that time, you know?
And
From
people always think about like, going into prison, that's the hardest part. Like, holy shit, man, you gotta break it down. You gotta start forgetting things. You gotta start, switching your mindset over. But the mindset out is even harder. And this is one thing, like ordinary straight people who never been to jail and never done anything, they don't understand. That's exactly the time when people need the most support. If you really want to, a lot of people are like, oh, criminals, throw away the key, throw them in jail. You know what I mean? Like, don't talk to him. And then when they get out, they're like, oh, he shouldn't be out. He shouldn't be out. He should be still in jail. Like there's so many
right.
feelings that come around it. And they don't realize, dude, the hardest fucking time is when we walk out that door. It's like our
Yeah.
mindset has been shifted for 9 years to survive. Now you got to get out
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
think a totally different way, right?
Right. And you have more choices too. I don't think people realize while you're incarcerated, everything is provided for you.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not the
Easy.
options aren't really there for you, even
Mm.
the things that you eat, you know.
Yeah.
Your day is pretty much scheduled out.
Yeah.
Your day is pretty much scheduled out. And so you know that okay, at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, I got child, or I got this, or I got that. It's not like that on the streets, right? You may
Yeah.
schedule something on the streets at 1 p.m., but you can get a phone call and
Yeah.
it can immediately change your plan. So a person may not think about those small innuendos, but
Mm.
while you're out, there's so many different options and choices you have to take. And when you first get out, it can be overwhelming.
Mm.
Luckily, like to mitigate that, you just have to prepare while you're away. Like I consistently read and I consistently was around people that were really like change guys,
Mm.
that we weren't going back to that old way of thinking, that old lifestyle. And I attribute it mostly to my faith, you know. Um, my faith in God and Christ is like it changed the way I viewed people and situations. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
knew when I came home that I wasn't a bad dude from the beginning. Anyway, I was
Mm.
just kind of I got veered off
Misled.
because I was chasing that immediate gratification.
Mm.
I,
Which is
I wanted. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's right there is the mindset change, I think, right? Is
Yeah.
the switching from the immediate gratification, short-term goals to getting and going after long-term goals.
Right.
Is that what you
Absolutely.
found that you had to do? Like you have to start thinking that way?
Yeah. No, definitely because we come from an environment where it's right now. This is what I want, and let me do what I have to do to get it.
Mm.
Like that microwave society. Even when you get out, people, social media, everything is presented to you as if like you do it today, you get it tomorrow or that same day. That overnight celebrity kind of a situation, but it's not like that. You have to grind, you got to work for it. It's like now I've been out almost 3 years and I'm still waiting on that peak. You know what I mean? Maybe somebody from the outside looking in, like, oh wow, like you're really doing your thing. But for me, I'm still getting rid of that immediate gratification mindset where I feel like, man, I should have been on like 2 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
and then also you compare yourself to other people in other situations, just as humans, that's what we do. And so for me, it's like, okay, celebrating my successes, like the small things, right? You mentioned that earlier, right? Like really patting yourself on the back, like, wow, I did that. You know what I mean? To kind of keep yourself away from that I need it tomorrow and that you feel like you accomplished something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. And I mean, that's the overall missing factor with most people is that they don't have a purpose or whatever. They always say the purpose driven life or whatever, but you don't have a reason to get up. And that's why I always find like people function really well in jail, because they're inside and their life is structured and they make their bed every morning, you know what I mean? And it's a difference for them. That's the difference they need is structure, right? So I always say if you can bring prison structure out into the street, you're going to find some success.
Absolutely.
Right.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. So did you start in jail? Like, did you go, okay, this is what I got to do. I know what I got to do. I'm going to test everything in jail. Did you do any of that? Or was it just hit the street and just, you started?
No, it definitely started from preparing while I was away. Like I said, man, from day one, I had I started preparing to be released. I had a cellie, and like I said, I was a ferocious reader, right? I read all kind of books, mainly business and autobiography, stuff like that. And this is just a part of my preparation. He was like, man, Cellie, man, you gonna get burnt out reading all those books, man. I'm telling you, man. By the time that I still had like 9 years left, but I'm reading and doing and working out, like people would ask me, like, are you going home soon? You must be short. I'm like, no, bro, I still got 8, 9 years left because the way I move as if I was leaving tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I knew that one day the gates can open up and I didn't want to be scrambling like I seen a lot of guys do. Like once they get that new release day, they're like, oh man, now they want to start working out. Now they want to start doing X, Y, Z, try to prepare for it. But so to answer your question, like I started that from day one, man. You know what I mean? Like I physically, mentally, spiritually, every day I did something that kind of worked on those each parts of those my being in those different areas.
That's huge. That's huge, dude. That's the secret is like people get pretty tunnel vision on, when they're like, oh, I want to go from A to B, or A to Z. They just want to go A to Z. They don't realize like the letters in between are so freaking important, man. Like, even going in jail. Okay. So with arts, did you, besides reading, get into any arts? Did you get into writing or did you get into any like kind of art?
Yeah, man. I had, I met a good buddy of mine who's out now, one of my good friends, and he was a script writer, not previously going to prison, but he was a beast or still is a beast as it relates to like writing like books and just movie scripts. And I was already writing on a story that was loosely based around my life called At What Cost. And when I went away, I met him. He was like, hey, I write scripts. I well, I got a script that I started working on prior to my incarceration when I was on bond. I get it sent in. And so long story short, I started working on that and I completed that maybe like around 2011. I went to prison in 2009. So it took me a couple years to complete it, but that was probably the most that I've done as it relates to like arts and crafts, if you will. Mainly the stock market was something I really, really honed the skill in. And it's something I'm kind of getting back to now. Of course, working out and just overall just business, just learning that as a whole.
Good for you, man. So let's get into that, the stock market. So this is a funny thing, man, because it's kind of ironic, right? Like here we have a incarcerated person
Yeah.
learning the stock market, which everybody thinks is like the most crooked shit on the planet, right?
Right.
Right. So, here you are going, and people are kind of looking at him and going, Aaron Smith, You're just
Yeah.
looking for another,
A
another
quick
scam,
fix.
right?
There you go. Yeah.
What did
Right.
you learn about the stock market what was the first thing that came to you, with the stock market? Like, what did you
Man, the
realize?
stock market is like life, man. You got ups and downs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to stick with the wave. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying? And
mm,
it takes a lot of. But I did everything by hand. So like when you go
mm,
online now and you see all the different what they call technical indicators, things
mm.
of that nature, that people use to basically figure out when to get in on the stock or XYZ. I was doing all those calculations by hand. You know what I mean? Every
Wow.
day. You know what I mean? And so it took some persistence,
Wow.
man, some diligence. And I did it for, man, I started with the stock market maybe 2011, all the
Wow.
way to my out date. So about 7.5, 8 years, but every day getting the numbers, reading the Wall Street, when I say
Crazy.
every single day I read the Wall Street,
Yeah.
I was so in tune what was
Yeah.
going on around the market in the world. But yeah, so I would say definitely the persistence and
Are
just
you uh
basic.
are you OCD?
No, I'm not, man. But
You're
I think
good.
one thing that I realized when I was away, you find yourself wanting to keep busy,
Yeah.
right? And so I was like, damn, maybe maybe I have ADHD. Hey, because I was always on the move, man. People would
Yeah.
see me on the compound, and I'll be headed here, headed there, headed here. I worked out 2 times a day, so that was probably my coping mechanism. And
Yeah.
so I think I probably got a touch of ADHD. You know what I mean?
Maybe
So
you got to touch a master P in you, man, because that's what, it sounds like
yeah,
what, that sounds like his life. Like he's a totally focused and businessman. Like
yeah.
that's a guy I really look up to,
Oh, definitely,
with
yeah,
what he does, right? Because I mean,
yeah,
he's really trying to put people on too, and that kind of comes back to your podcast. Like you really are about putting people on and really
yeah,
about showing people that there's success stories out there,
yeah, for sure.
which
Yeah,
is the most important part about recidivism and like going to prison and getting out of prison.
hmm
People need to understand that there are success stories, right?
yeah. You need to see some kind of someone that went through what you went through,
Yeah.
and you can say as a reference. I know when I was away, man, I would love when men and women came to prison to speak to us that had been in our same shoes. They
Mm-hmm.
wore those khakis. They was in the federal system, and so
Yeah.
and you seen light at the end of the tunnel.
Mm.
And so for me, I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to be able to change the narrative of what people thought of someone
Yeah.
that was formerly incarcerated as it relates to business as a
Yeah.
whole.
Yeah. So have you lost a lot of friends over the years?
I wouldn't say that I lost friends. I would say that some of the people I grew up with, they're, I just kind of elevated my
Yeah.
mindset.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, did
Yeah,
you lose
yeah,
friends, because of
yeah.
that?
But yeah, I say that we maybe not as close as we used to be because we just maybe grew apart.
Yeah.
Because of the time in between and the physical distance, but also like I think like
Mental
I've been through
distance.
so much, bro. You know what I mean? And
Mm,
it's like I've seen a whole lot. And so I just kind of keep my circle kind of really nice and tight. And so, man, most of the guys that I really talk to every day are the guys I was in the box with,
yeah.
Those are like that's like a brotherhood,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like the Marine Corps, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
How does
those
that
guys,
feel? Well, how does that feel when you gotta like make a decision between your future and your past? Let's say your friendships and a brother that you had, right? Like, did you
yeah.
get to that point where you're like, holy shit, I gotta do something here, or else my life's gonna go to hell. Like, did you have that moment?
Not really.
That's
I
good.
think that because I was away from people that I grew up with, like childhood friends, for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't really keep in contact with a lot of them while I was away consistently, and
Mm-hmm.
so it was easy for me when I came home to, like, okay, I got my life over here. These are still my guys. You know what I mean? I still love them. You know what I mean? I just kind of love them from a distance. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, like, we get around each other. There's no ill feelings or anything like that. It's just that. this is the direction I'm on. You know what I mean? Like we have that familiarity, but like I've grown so much, and like I say, I've seen so much, and so the new guys, the guys that I spent years with, I seen them every day. We went through things together. It's like those are the guys I really connect with on that level because we share that commonality, that bond of that hardship of being incarcerated.
Yeah. Fuck, those are bonds that just don't die.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
like my number one thing in life with friends, like I have a small circle. I think most people who've done a lot of time end up having a really small circle, right?
Yeah.
And my number one thing, bro, is character. You know, it's like, what have you been through in your life? You know what I mean? That makes you, you know, I hate to say it like this, but makes you worthy to be in a relationship with me. You know what I mean? And make me feel privileged to be in a relationship with you. You know what I mean? Like we grew up with suckers and just guys who are just, you know, going to be going in and out of jail their entire life. It's just their destiny, right?
Yeah.
It's hard, man. It's hard. And you know, I'm sure you try to get people on a different track and different mentality, and they're just fight you. And eventually you just kind of go, okay, bro, you're on your own kind of thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. And one thing, I think one thing that I realized is that once people see you doing what you saying you're going to do, then they get on board. You know what I mean? Because oftentimes in our community, man, we see so many people going in and out of prison. They come out and they do the same thing, right? And so to find someone that goes to prison and do the things that I'm doing, it's an anomaly because a lot of people, we just used to the cycle. You know what I mean? We get in, we go out, and so they never really see. They don't have a frame of reference to say, "Oh, okay, he's get out, he's doing like reentry, prison reform type stuff. He's got this podcast or whatever, right?" Because we just don't see it as much. But to be honest with you, as I continue to do these stories, I realize that there are a lot of people that's really doing their thing that were formerly incarcerated. It's just that oftentimes there isn't a platform so they can kind of come out and let a person know, you know what I mean? Like, hey, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's important, man. Like this is why the podcast life has really become super important. Like think about it. 10 years ago, guys like us getting out of jail, we'd have to go get a construction job, or maybe you'd try and become an extra in movies. You know, there wasn't much really think about it for us to do. Now you got this hot podcast, you know what I mean? And you're setting an example for people. You know what I mean? And this is a great opportunity for your future because you're planning your future, bro. You're planning like your 40s, right? You're going to be this media person in your 40s. I can already tell. You know what I mean? So you got to lay the foundation down now.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. It takes, again, that preparation is key. I started the podcast not as a way to get like rich or anything like that. It was a couple of reasons. One was changing the narrative, right? I wanted to kind of show the world like, hey, look, we did this time, but man, these are great businessmen and businesswomen, right? We can really be and thrive in a business community. But then also, I had no social capital when I came home. Like, despite going to college, doing all that, like, I had no professional network, anything like that. And so I had to build that up. And I knew by getting out there and networking and the podcast would be one way that I can increase that social capital. And so now that's the value that the podcast brought me. Like I had the opportunity to build with all kind of people, countless podcast shows, just meeting great people, man, that been in the same situation I've been in. And so right there, that's more than the money to me. And of course, I want to make a lot of money from it, right? You know what I mean? We all do, right? That gives me the opportunity to put other people on, but the value for me is in that social capital.
Yeah.
That's dope. Building that network up.
That's dope, man. Yeah, and I'm the same. That's why I reach out and trying to reach out to people and connect, right? Because this podcast thing is going to be the next TV, and eventually, like you, sir, are going to have your own show, right? And there's going to be people. It's it for a fact it's going to happen. Yeah. Okay, so here's the Wolf of Wall Street moment. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Aaron Smith, sell me your podcast.
Man, you know what? Great question, man. And pretty much, man, if you guys want to hear dope stories of guys who came home from the penitentiary, man, from nothing, like I like to say, from the penitentiary to the penthouse, great stories of guys really overcoming the odds, escaping the odds, and switching hustles, man, and learning business too at the same time from an unlikely source. You definitely want to be able to check out Escaping the Odds, right? We got over 50 stories. 2 seasons long, man, working on the 3rd season, like really doing some great stuff within the community. And guys will really motivate you. Doesn't even matter if you've never been in prison a lot, right?
Yeah.
If you just want to switch hustles, maybe you want to go from that 9 to 5 job to like, hey, you always want to start your landscape business, right? We have someone on there that probably did something similar, or again, we overcame the odds, and if we can, you can too.
Man, I'm so proud of you, bro. Like seriously, when I came across your podcast, I'm like, dude, this guy is going to be big one day. I could
Appreciate it.
tell. Yeah,
Thank
bro.
you, man.
You're a grinder. You're taking the street hustle mentality to the podcast, and it's going to work for you, bro. Okay, so
Yeah.
two things I got to ask you before we
Yep.
take off.
Yeah.
Maybe 3 things, actually. 3 questions, right?
All right, let's make
questions.
it 30, man.
All right. All right. So here you go. Number one.
Yeah.
If you could speak and say something to yourself 20 years ago, what would you tell them?
Oh man. Don't be afraid of failure. Failure is growth.
Cool. Very deep.
Failure is growth, man.
Yeah, man. And young men, we're scared to fail. We're scared. Yeah. It's the scariest thing in the world to be judged and failed, right? You got to get over that.
Yes.
Dope. Yes. All right. Sure. This one comes from my podcast partner. He said to ask you if you go to the next world, right? You pass and you go to the next world. You can take 3 artist catalogs with you for music. Who you taking?
Oh, absolutely, Jay. I'm taking Jay-Z.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm taking Jadakiss.
Yeah. Pulling one out from the archives, man.
Absolutely. I'm taking Jadakiss. Nice. And I'm taking one of the new school guys. And I would say Lil Baby.
Oh, really? I've never had that one before. What do you so compare the old school to the new school? All right. Obviously, in my opinion, I'm 40. 90s hip hop just kills. It kills it. It's what I grew up on. What's your feel between hip hop these days in comparison?
My feel for right now, it's a lot of garbage out here. You know what I mean? I think it glorifies the drug culture from like they're making it really cool to use drugs. You know what I mean? Like to be an addict, right? You know, whether it's popping the pills and drinking the lean and things of that nature, right? Which is foolish, right? And I think before the Jay-Z era and the Jadakiss era, like the most people talked about was smoking weed.
Yeah, drinking a 40.
And drinking 40, drinking some beer, stuff like that. And I think it has really went off into something else and created this zombie drug culture, which is fueling. I know I get off into a whole bunch of it's fueling a lot of the violence. I know, especially in Chicago, because the drugs make a person feel a certain kind of way and they do certain things. And so they're causing a lot of havoc with that. I wouldn't say that's the only reason, but so that's for me is the biggest one of the biggest differences. And I think back in the day there were more lyricists, right? Like they really had, it was speaking with some substance. So that's why I picked Lil Baby, because although he's from this new culture, he really can rap.
Yeah.
Like, he really has lyrics. You know what I mean? Like if you listen to some of his songs, like he's really saying, even when he's talking crazy, the typical street stuff now, he can get on the track with Jay and Jadakiss, and he's going to hold his own. I can't say that for a lot of others.
Well, that's because he's got the influence of those guys. Like, these new rappers, the one thing they're missing is their music catalog in their head. These guys, the rap from 2000, I'd say about 14 on, has been non-committed hip hop and rap, dude. You can just go on you can go on and say anything over and over.
Mumble rap.
Yeah, it's just all this mumble shit, right? And this and this drug rap, like he called it, right? So these kids don't have that influence from the early pioneers. They don't even know, who the first rapper ever was out there. Like they don't know that stuff, right? So that's why I think the rap is just horrible. They need to take these kids to school and actually put them through rap school and have them learn about the history, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And I think that can, every culture has this, they probably said the same thing about our culture, you know what I'm saying? Someone before us. But
like Easy E, you know, NWA days. Like I remember that. Like
yeah,
that was, you listen to that, they were looking at you like they want to punish you because you're
yeah,
listening to NWA back in the day. I remember.
yeah, yeah, for
All
sure.
right, all
Yeah,
right. Here's my third question for you, and I'll let you go, man, because I know you're probably
yeah,
busy, and so am I. Here's
all
my
good.
question. You're a religious person. You found your
Yeah,
faith while you're in prison. And you know, you've sat down, you've read the Bible probably a ton, right? You've
yeah,
read some
for sure.
passages, you studied. You're like me,
Yeah,
man. I
yeah,
studied, you know what I mean? I know that thing back and forth. So you're gonna have a
mm.
great idea about this. What, Aaron Smith, what happens when you die? Like what
Man.
happens?
What happens when you die?
Hmm.
Just based on my understanding, my teaching, just reading, is that your soul, you know what I mean, your spirit. Of course, your body is going to be where it's at, but your spirit goes to be with God. You know what I mean? Goes
Yeah.
to this place called heaven. You know what I mean? And so, but our body will be in the ground or wherever, right? That's my take on that.
So you're going to heaven with Jay, right?
Yeah,
Jada,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Some
They're
some
gonna
some
hear
little
you
some little
coming
bit,
up in
yeah.
heaven,
Yeah,
man.
you know what? It's probably the edited version once I get
Yeah.
up there. But you know, I definitely I'll have my headphones on and I'll
That's
be
dope.
listening to some of that and some pop too. You know,
That's wicked. Bro,
on
thank
that
you
pop.
so
Yeah,
much, man, for like coming
yeah,
on my podcast. I appreciate it. If you ever need a guest to come on and talk, you know, I'm always open for you. We can talk about things in Canada or whatever. And
yeah, for
man, I'm
sure.
just really thankful you came on, man. And I'm gonna be following you. We're gonna promote this and you know,
Okay,
tell
cool.
everybody where they can find you online.
Yeah, absolutely, man. First and foremost, thanks for having me on, man. Great host, man. I like what you're doing over there. Escapingoz.com. Again, we have over 50 stories, two seasons full of like impactful, great guests that came on and kind of like told their story about business and just the whole life. Also, the YouTube channel, Facebook, Instagram, Escaping Oz Media. We also have a blog that we do on the 1st to 15th, and those are stories of people that didn't get a chance to come on the podcast, but they still have a story to tell. So we dropped that on the 1st to 15th, just
Nice.
dropped one on the 1st. And so look for that on the website as well. We have resources, whether you're trying to start a business,
Hmm.
whether you're trying to get a job, housing, not only just for formerly incarcerated, but like for anyone. So that's on the website as well. We got the merchandise, Switch Hustles,
Yeah.
by Escaping the Odds. So you guys can check that out and support the move with that. And yeah,
Nice.
that's pretty much it, man.
Dope. I love that shirt. I'm gonna order it as soon as I hang up with you. Man,
Okay,
thank
cool,
you so
man.
much, bro. I really
All right.
appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you,
Right?
man. I love what you're doing, man. Great host, man. Great questions, man. And really, really
Thank you,
full,
sir.
man. From
Thank you,
one host to
sir.
another, man. Thank you.